Daniel Schiffer posted this last week where he made an ad for a socialite at home using a blue screen. And I thought it'd be a little fun to recreate it, so let's get to it. So the setup for this is going to be pretty simple. It's all on the coffee table right here. So we have this big green poster board for Michael's, which we're using as a green screen. And then I have this turntable with the actual can of soda on it. Or not soda, seltzer. The can of seltzer is on the turntable so I can spin it smoothly and get that consistent rotation. And then also I had made sure to keep the turntable and the seltzer a good 1.5 feet away from the green screen, just so we don't get a green light bouncing off of the green screen onto the seltzer itself. And then for lighting, I have one lamp back on that side, the overhead fan, and then this little aperture on top of the camera. So I'm shooting this on the EOS R using the 24-105, and then I'll put the settings right here. And this should be pretty straightforward to shoot. It is just the one shot of the can rotating in a full circle. And then once I get that, we'll take it into Final Cut. Alright, so here I have the clip that I recorded in my timeline. I just trimmed it down so that it would be just the start and the end of the rotation. Now I'm going to go ahead and find the keyer effect and put that on clip. So you can see it's starting to key out some of the lettering on the can itself. So what I'm going to do is I'll sample the green for the actual poster board, and then I'm going to fill the holes all the way to the max, and that'll kind of keep it from bleeding into the can. It'll only cut out the background. I'm just going to go ahead and make sure there aren't any issues throughout the entire clip. I'm checking to make sure that none of the can is being cut out. There aren't any like fuzzy spots or any holes on the words. And it looks good, so we can move on from here. So now we're going to use the draw mask effect, and we're going to cut off the cup that the can is sitting on. I found using the glass underneath the can to be a little easier when doing the masking, since I didn't have to be super precise. The kind of translucent glass and the metal of the bottom of the can kind of blended together. I could be a little bit imprecise. And then I struggled with drawing the mask for a little bit, so I'm going to speed through that. But once that mask is drawn, we can go through and check to make sure that it looks good throughout the entire clip and that there isn't any part of the mask that's covering any part of the can at all. I think this looks pretty good. I don't see the can being covered at all by the mask, and the bottom looks pretty consistent throughout, so we can go ahead and find a nice backdrop for this. I'm thinking we can use a beach, since like the seltzer water seems refreshing. Now surprisingly enough, this video isn't sponsored by a stock footage company, so I'm just going to go to Google and look up some beach images. I think this one looks good, so we'll go ahead and save it and then import it into our timeline. I'm going to go ahead and scale this background to fit behind the entire clip of the can spinning, and that's going to be right around 8 seconds. Once that's done, I can go ahead and compound the clip of the can, so that way as we modify the rotation and scale of the can itself relative to the background, we're not moving any of the points for the mask and messing up that bottom edge of the can that we have. Now I'm going to go ahead and add keyframes to the scale and rotation of the can so you can modify those. I'm going to set this starting scale to be about 18% and the rotation to be around 85, and I know I'm going to change these later, so I'm not going to be too precise about it right now. Once I got the initial points in, I went ahead and did the color correction on the can footage so that it kind of looked like it would blend into the beach scene. I'm not the best at color grading, so I'll leave a link below to Jesse Driftwood's video on color correction. That was where I learned how to fix this footage. Now I'm just working on fine-tuning the point in the spin where the can stops scaling up and rotating. Since I kind of want, when the can stops spinning, I want it to stop scaling up and rotating. Once I have that done, I can go ahead and add the keyframes to animate the position so it moves to the left after it stops moving, and that'll reveal the words below it. Now the distance that the can moves isn't exact. I'm just kind of eyeballing a position that I think would look good with the words that I know I'm going to put on the right side. Now I'm going to play it back, and I noticed that it moves a little fast when it moves over to the left, so I'm going to go ahead and make those two keyframes a little further apart to cause the can to move a little more slowly to the left so it's not so much of a jerking motion. Now I'm going to go ahead and add the words in. So I'm going to start with just a basic title and Final Cut. And then the first word is going to say seltzer, since this is seltzer, surprisingly enough. And I personally found figuring out the fonts to be the most stressful part of this entire process. I just cannot decide on a font. I think the one that I chose looks good, and I hope you guys agree. Let me know in the comments if you don't. Now once I have the font, I'm just going to go ahead and scale it up to a good size that I think looks like it balances out with the can on the left side. Now I'm going to go ahead and add keyframes for the position and opacity of the first word, so it starts right where the can lands in the middle of the frame, and then it'll fade in from an opacity of 0 to 100 as it moves to the right, so it kind of looks like it's appearing. Now once I have that done, I'll go ahead and make the basic title for the tagline that I'm going to have below the word seltzer. Now I actually found this tagline in like a press release that Trader Joe's made, so I kind of tailored this specific commercial to something that they've already created in the past. That way it would fit in with the branding. Now I'll move the basic title for this tagline right where I want it, below the word seltzer. And then once I have the words typed out and the position decided on, I'll set the font, and then I'll keyframe the opacity from 0 to 100 so it looks like it just kind of fades in underneath the word seltzer. Once that's done, I'll go ahead and just run it through to make sure everything looks good. And I think this is looking pretty good for my first attempt at making a product commercial at home. And just as a little extra something, I'm going to go ahead and add the Trader Joe's logo at the end of the commercial. I'll scale that down to fit in the middle of the screen so it looks nice and small. And now I'm going to use a white solid to put behind it so it doesn't have the black background on that white logo. I think this came out pretty well, especially for my first try. I went back and added some sound design and a couple minor tweaks that I think made it a little bit better overall. Thanks for watching. Here's the final commercial.